Welcome back to the Follow Your Spark podcast. I am so excited for this conversation today. I have an incredible human sitting across the screen from me. Her name is Kimberly Dawkins. To tell you a little bit about who she is in the world, she is the founder and owner of Energy, an incredible energy healing organization company. I'm so excited to hear more about her work. And she was born into a heritage rich in African American and Indigenous traditions. Her journey has been marked by profound spiritual and personal evolution. Her path began in South Carolina, where she grew up, and it's led her to all kinds of places, including to Iquitos, Peru, where she was first introduced to energy and shamanic medicine. Her life took a pivotal turn with the passing of her mother, a moment that tested her strength and also awakened her to her true calling. This profound experience propelled her into energy medicine, where she flourishes as an energy medicine woman, a Reiki master, a light code practitioner, and a sound healer. She also has certifications as a death doula, as well as a master practitioner of energy medicine healing, where she sharpened her skills in shamanic practices. In everything that she does, she is dedicated to supporting others through the joys and challenges of life's cycles. So again, I'm so curious to hear more about all of these things. And I always talk about in interviews who this person is in the world and how I was led to them. And if you heard Elijah Brown's episode earlier on, that incredible woman introduced me to you. And I always trust these different sparks. And when she talked about the work that you did, something lit up in me. So I don't know where this conversation is going to go. And I'm just so excited to see it. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Gina, thank you for having me. I'm just as excited to be here and to talk about my path and my journey, where I started, where I am now, and how I see myself moving forward as a light.
All right. So the first question I love to ask people is when you hear that phrase, to follow your spark, what, if anything, does that mean to you?
For me, following my spark means being led by my intuition. It's being on the journey of the unknown, which is absolutely amazing. It's scary because we always want to be in control. We always want to know what's coming next, right? But there is so much excitement in the unknown as well. And so to me, again, the following my spark is being in the unknown and allowing my intuition to guide me into the excitement of everything that's to come.
I love that. And it's definitely not a perspective that everyone would have. So I love that perspective of the unknown can be exciting.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be something we fear. What a beautiful perspective.
Thank you.
And I'm curious if you always felt like that
No.
or if that developed over the years.
No, this has developed over the years I'm an avid follower of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he talks about, I do a lot of meditations and journeying into the unknown, becoming the no one, no thing, nowhere type of thing. And I've just seen being in the quantum, being in the unknown has just brought so much excitement to my life. So whenever things don't quite go the way that I think they should go, or I may want them to go, or I don't want to say stuck, but I'm kind of like in that airplane mode before the plane takes off, right?
Mm.
I am just envisioning it being something great that's waiting for me on the other side versus how I try
Mm.
to manipulate and control and it has to go this way once again. So yeah, I like it. It brings me so, because it's like a surprise. That's how I look at it. Okay, what's the surprise gonna be? And that shift in mentality, it draws more of the good, more of the excitement to you versus being on the opposite side of that, right? So yeah.
100%. I love that. Oh, this is a surprise. I'm just seeing like a cake and what's going to pop out of the cake or
Yeah,
pop out of the box or whatever it is.
exactly.
And that curiosity and like wonderment of, I wonder
Yeah,
what's going to happen next versus I'm afraid of what's going to happen
exactly.
next.
That's beautiful. That's exactly it. That's it.
Mhm. Amazing. And it sounds like Dr. Joe Dispenza has really helped you. Was there any other tipping point earlier on that maybe before that tipping point you were more afraid of the unknown or in a different state? And yes, Dispenza has helped, but was there a moment or something else that kind of changed the trajectory of your perspective?
So, as you read a little bit about me, the trajectory actually came. So, weird, I guess, to kind of say that, but I had a friend of mine who told me that my mother's death was my awakening. And it
Mm,
wasn't until after my mom died that I actually started reading about Dr. Joe Dispenza. My uncle, he reached out to me one day and he was like, "You haven't been meditating." This was after my mom
mm,
died. And he was like, "You haven't been doing the things to keep you grounded." And he suggested that I
mm,
read a book. And that book was Becoming Supernatural. And I
mm,
it took me months to finally read it, but I used to carry it everywhere under my arm for some reason before I even read it. Like whatever room I went into, that book was right there. I was connected to it
mm,
before I even read it. And then
mm,
when I opened it up finally, probably about 4 months after my mom died, and I started reading
mm,
it, it was just like, and it was a lot to take in. It was a lot to get used to because I come from a place very indoctrinated into religion. And so, reading Dr. Joe's book and having to release some of the ideals and beliefs that I used to have, letting go of being in control, like understanding that the only thing I'm responsible for is setting the intention and then
mm,
being source to deliver it back to me in the best possible way for me, meaning I don't worry about the how and I don't worry about the timing. I just set the intention. So that was really those two things. My mom dying, and as a deaf doula, we had to learn to become comfortable using the word death, dying, dead versus other words like passing. As I try to stay away
mm,
from passing now because or lost, we've lost someone because they're not lost, they're just in a different form.
mm,
But those two things were probably the things I would say were kind of like the egg being cracked open. And then
mhm,
from there, going to Peru and participating in about 6 ayahuasca ceremonies while I was in Peru, of course, just opened me up to an
mm,
entirely different world, a different mindset, a different way of thinking, introduced me to energy work, of which I had known nothing about prior to there.
mhm,
And then they sent me back home with all this curiosity, right?
mm,
Curiosity and this
mhm.
wanting to know, like, how does this work? So there things were just lining up. And at the time, of course, I couldn't see it. I didn't know. But in retrospect, looking back, I'm like, wow, I could see how the dominoes were being lined up one by one. Yeah.
Yeah, so powerful. And it's like in the moment of huge challenges or huge loss or huge obstacles, it's not always clear of what am I going to get from this? Or could there be any gift from this? Or how could this impact my life? And like you said, to be able to look back, now things are making sense.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful perspective in hindsight and even sometimes in the moment, depending on what it is. Of course, feel your feelings, whatever comes up. And also being curious around, I wonder what gift this could have for me. It's like that surprise you said in the box. I just wonder.
That's it. I never thought that my mom's death would have been a gift to me. It was my mom's death that led me on the path of becoming a deaf doula. I, again, how things just fall into place. At a flea market one day, I met an Ifa priestess and was talking to her about being my mother's caregiver for the last 4 years of her life. And so sweetly and gently, she said to me, she said, "Baby, you helped a soul get home." And I had never
Mm,
heard that before, and something in me clicked, like, when I thought back again on the process of being my mother's caregiver and being with her the day that she died, being there to hold her
mm,
hand and talk her through it and tell her that it was okay for her to go home because my brother and I, we were gonna be okay. It hadn't clicked that, wow, I'm
mm,
meeting my mom. I'm releasing
mm,
spirit to return to source. And it was just, I mean, this is why I can talk about it now without it causing grief. I'm actually very happy about it. So
mm,
who would ever think that in being a deaf doula, we learn that there's a thing called a good death. And I had no idea that I was guiding my mom into having a good death. Right.
mm.
So that was her gift to me. One of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have full body chills as you're talking about this. And it's actually why Elijah introduced me to you. Because last year I experienced death in my life and people who were very dear to me. And I watched this documentary that I'm like blanking on the name of it right now, but it was about a man who was going through cancer and broadcasted and aired his dying process in this
Mhm.
really sacred way, and just had me thinking about death and, like you said, like how to die in a good way. What does that even mean? Can you share with listeners, if maybe they've never heard that word death doula, like what that means, a little bit more about that work?
Sure. So you may hear death doula or you may hear end of life doula. So most people are familiar when they hear the word doula, they're familiar with a birth doula, someone who helps bring life into the world. Where we're on the other side of that spectrum. We help people prepare for that death, for the transition from this world into the next, or whatever that belief is. And it can encompass spirituality, but it's also very practical. We help them get their affairs in order, their most forms, their directives. We help them do legacy projects. So we work with the person that is dying and also the family that's taking care of the loved one that is dying. And it's just, we give them comfort. We do everything that we can possibly do to make sure that the process that they're going through is as comfortable as possible. Everything from administrative affairs to helping them ground in their spirituality and whatever that may look like.
Mhm, mhm. Who typically, and maybe there's no typical, but if there was a typical, who typically reaches out to you or how do people find you? Is it the person, like a family member who's experiencing someone else and they're looking for support? Or yeah, tell
That's
me more about
exactly it. It's normally a family member who just feels so overwhelmed. And the reason why I say that is because one of the things that I've learned personally when it comes to being a caregiver, I think about 98% of caregivers are doing the work by themselves. They're doing it alone. They don't have help. And so they're looking for someone that can help alleviate some of the stress and some of the pressure off of taking care of that loved one. And that's where I would come in as a death doula.
Beautiful. What an incredible support. And granted, I haven't experienced a ton of death in my life. And it just from kind of like the outside perspective of, and tell me if this resonates with you, of lacking ritual, lacking ceremony, lacking the sacredness in that transition. And like you said, of not even necessarily having to use the word loss and just like being able to see it in a different way, in a different context. So I would
Mhm.
imagine all of your shamanic work and all the things you do overlap. But yeah, I'm curious of what you see as people realize is like the greatest gift of this work that maybe they didn't even know existed or they didn't know they needed.
Yes, the greatest gift is peace.
Mm.
The greatest gift is peace. And it's also a shift in perspective. And that's my own personal story as well, because prior to my mom dying, I had this perspective that death was this horrible, evil thing. And as I watched my mother actually I don't say transmute, because she went from being in this body to being like, you literally, I was able to experience my mother's spirit leaving her body.
Mm.
And to see that, it was wow. My mother, she had dementia, Lewy body dementia and Alzheimer's, so she suffered through the last couple of years of her life. And so when death came, it was like it was delivering her from
Mm.
this horrible disease that had overtaken her. And I remember I received my certification at Going with Grace. And they normally, when someone has experienced a loss that traumatic, that close to home, they usually ask that they wait at least a year before they take the class, because they really dig deep. But I shared with them a letter that I had written to death, and I'll paraphrase the letter, but it was
Mm.
basically where I asked death, I apologized to death and asked for its forgiveness for my
Mm.
ignorance and how I used to think
Mm.
about it. And I thanked it for being my mother's friend and for coming and delivering her
Mm.
pain that she was experiencing. And
Mm.
I submitted that letter along with my application, and they wrote me back and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're ready." They didn't understand how or why, but the response I got back, and it was like 4 months later, and we were
Wow.
starting the program in 6 months. So they were like, "Yeah, you got this." So I to go back to your question, I think those are the two main things, is that people find peace and they find a shift in perspective of how they were viewing death prior to.
Wow. So powerful. And yeah, perspective is everything, right? Because if we're looking at death as this horrible thing, this unnatural thing, this like, why did this happen? Why was this person taken from me? There can be a lot of pain and suffering that comes with that. And not to say that people shouldn't feel grief or feelings when it comes to death. That's part of it, that's natural. And there can be another side of it, another perspective to it.
Yes,
So, what a beautiful
absolutely,
gift.
absolutely.
So I know you are a woman of many gifts and talents and many skills, and I'm curious how the other pieces of the work that you do all fit together, or if there's like a common thread or a theme that ties them all together.
Well, for me, I would say the common theme that ties everything together is energy. It's all energy.
Mhm.
We're energy. And the work that I do centers around energy, whether it's the rituals in my shamanic practices when it comes to helping release the body from, I'm doing this part of the rituals, releasing the body, the spirit from the body, or as a Reiki practitioner, dealing with the chakras, making sure that the chakras are aligned, the chakra balancing, all of the things in shamanic medicine. It is all the common thread amongst all of them. It's energy, and it's about clearing and making sure that the energy centers are all in alignment so that we can not just be healthy in body, but also healthy in spirit, healthy in our
Mhm.
emotions, healthy in our mind. It all starts for me, from my perspective, on an energetic level. And if you can
Mhm.
deal with things on an energetic level, they show up in the holistic person.
Absolutely. So,
Mm.
like you said, there's everything is energy. We are energy, and we can work with ourselves and our bodies in a way that can free us from things that were stuck or holding us back. Can you tell us a little bit about the different types of work that you do? Because I know that there's many. So, give us a little breakdown of the different things that you do.
Sure. So with Reiki, which I think it's the most known, it has such a momentum right now. It's the universal life force energy, Ray universal life force key energy. And it is the clearing Reiki. How can I say, there's so many different ways for me to explain what Reiki is, but it basically, the way I like to explain it is Reiki is energy that puts the body in such a relaxed state that it allows it to actually heal itself. It kind of
Mhm.
slows you down, allows you to relax, and then it targets those areas in the body and or the luminous energy field that need healing.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Again, of course, with chakra balancing, I like to think of chakra balancing as if you're cleaning a house, you go into every single room that needs to be cleaned, right? And so you go in every room and you do a deep cleansing and you sweep it out, you dust it, every single room that needs to be cleaned. That's how I do
Mhm.
chakra balance.
Mhm.
And then as a light language practitioner, which I love, I channel and I feel them. As soon as I started talking about it, I feel it coming through now. So if it's okay for me to just give, I guess, an example of what the light language, how it comes through me. And it comes through people differently. Some people see color, some people see sacred geometry, some people write, some people verbalize it. And my strongest form is through verbalization. So if there's
Mhm.
one that may think it's a little, I'm not ready for that yet, you can fast forward through this. But the way it comes through me is through my body movements, like this, and then "Eki ora yonoro amae yono." Ayanyeano amo. Yanaye ano. Yanae amo. And so, what light language is, I channel from various dimensions to raise the frequency and the vibration of my client or whoever I'm with to their highest divinity. And then
Mhm.
there will be times when there is an interpretation that comes through because it's frequency. Like We're
Mm,
speaking, and we've been taught to put letters together to form words, and then we give those words meaning, and that's how we garner the understanding. But with light language bypasses our logical and our analytical thinking and goes directly to the soul. And so our
mm,
soul will resonate with what we're hearing. Sometimes it's a song, as you just heard. Sometimes it's just a different language. And just so you know, I always know when it's them coming through because I can't carry a note. I can't. Like if you were to just hear me sing, if I tried to sing right now, you'd be like, "Oh no, you might want to not do that." Come through so beautifully.
mm,
So it's usually the divinity of the person that I'm sitting face to face with, and it raises their frequency and their vibration to
mm.
their highest self. And
Wow.
and as I said, sometimes they'll give me the interpretation. I've had clients where I didn't need to interpret because somehow they were able to interpret what was coming through. So yeah.
That's powerful. And I definitely felt different sensations in my body as you were singing, and even at one point, I heard you kind of, like, singing a certain note or frequency or something, and then I heard, like, a higher sound in the background, like,
Mm.
a different sound.
Wow,
So, it
yeah.
was interesting to hear that, and yeah, it's just beautiful to receive that frequency, that vibration. So, thank you for sharing that.
Um,
And like you said, it's definitely something that invites us to let go of the mind and
yes,
let go of the thinking and to just feel and receive.
that's a period. That's it. That's it.
Mhm.
And then
Thank
also being a Mesa carrier, I work in shamanic medicine. So I do things like illuminations, which are clearing the luminous energy field of various imprints that keep us in certain patterns and cycles in our lives. Extractions, which are locating low vibrational energies that may be in our luminous energy field or even in our bodies, and basically extracting those out. Soul retrievals, which are when we experience trauma. If sometimes you hear people say, "I just don't feel like myself," experiencing trauma where there's that part of ourselves that we've kind of sent away for safety, and we want to
you.
reunite. We want to reunite those lost parts of ourselves so that we are, because when we lose a part of ourselves, we then get on our track of fate versus being on the track of destiny. And the
Mm,
difference between the two, fate deals more with the probability that certain things will happen, whereas destiny deals with the possibilities, and there are unlimited possibilities. So
mm.
if you can think a thing, if you can imagine a thing, if you can desire a thing, then we go through and we find the destiny track that's attached to that thing that you want. And so we
Mm.
move you from that fate onto into your destiny, and we help you journey towards that. Yeah.
So interesting. I've never heard that description before of fate versus destiny. Of, okay, fate is the probability of, okay, well, it seems like my life is going in this direction. It's probably never going to change. That's just like my fate. It's what's going to happen. Versus tuning into that energy of destiny of, wait a second, there's a million different possibilities. Like, I am still the creator of my life. What could be possible? What could I imagine? And knowing that it's not predestined of this is the one and only path or trajectory that's, oh, it's just fate that you're never going to be happy or you're never going to, I'm destined to whatever. It's putting that power back within ourselves of, okay, what can I create? What can I
That's
imagine?
it. Yes, you got it.
So, obviously, the work that you do, that could be a powerful tool for people who are seeking support with that. And is there anything else that you is coming through you right now? If someone's, okay, wait a second, I don't want to be stuck in my fate or stuck in whatever circumstances I feel stuck in right now. What would you want to tell them if they're kind of like feeling trapped in that moment and want to open up to more possibility or like what they could imagine for their destiny?
Right. So when I hear someone say that they're stuck, then my focus goes on to the second chakra, which is the sacral, which is the chakra of creativity, right? The creation, whatever that is, whatever that looks like. You hear writers say they have writer's block, that's the sacral. They're stuck there. So there's energy not flowing. So I would either recommend chakra balancing to clear that chakra, and or as I said before, an illumination if they feel like they're stuck in that same pattern or they're attracting the same type of experiences to them. There's an imprint there that needs to be cleared. And so I
Mhm.
recommend having an illumination to clear that imprint
Mhm.
and get that chakra, that sacral chakra cleared out so that they
Yeah.
can creating again, feeling unstuck, like moving. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
100%. So it sounds like obviously working with energy can be an incredibly powerful tool to get the energy moving and flowing if you feel stuck, and being able to tune into, depending on how it is or what's showing up, of what chakra might really use or could use some like deep clearing and
Yeah.
cleansing,
Yeah.
and seeing what opens up from there. Amazing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were driven to this path from multiple breadcrumbs, multiple moments, tipping points on your path. And I'm curious, what fuels you most in the work that you do? Like, why have you chosen this path?
I don't even know if I chose the path or if the path chose me. I feel like the path chose me because, again, in retrospect, when I look back, it was like my mom died. I read the book. I went to Peru. While I was in Peru during ceremony, there were people there from all over the world, and I'm over them and I'm doing this thing, this movement. And I remember there was one young lady in particular. She said to me the next day when we were having breakfast, she said, Kimberly, she said, "You were over my lady parts." I hope I can say that on the podcast. She said, "You were over my lady parts for an extended period of time. And I could feel the energy coming from out of there. But what you did not know was that I was molested when I was a child and I was raped 2 years ago." And so hearing that and then speaking to the shamans in Peru, they told me that I was going to help heal a lot of people. Then coming back over here, not knowing anything about what I was doing in Peru, looking up energy medicine, Reiki's the first thing that comes up. I get my Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 attunements, and the Reiki master doing Reiki 2, she was the one that said to me, she said, "You're working with energy other than Reiki, but I don't know what it is. She said, pray and ask that someone will come that can mentor you." And I went to a different place to get my Reiki 3 attunement, and the shaman who attuned me to Reiki 3 was the one that told me, she's like, "You're walking in shamanic energy." And so
Mhm.
that's what it was. And that's why I'm saying I don't necessarily know if I chose it, but now that I'm in it, it's really the only thing I want to do because I see myself just yesterday in meditation. I heard myself saying, "I am love for someone else. I am sacred space for someone else.
Mhm.
I am beauty for someone else." Like, I am all these
Mhm.
things for other people, for myself, of course, but I also get to be these things for other people when they're
Mhm.
looking for these things. And so the thing that drives me now is knowing that there are a world full of people out there who need healing, not curing, but they need actual healing, right? And I
Mhm.
can be a vessel to help them with that, not being the healer for them, but helping them learn how to heal themselves. That just brings me so much excitement and so much joy. I just, it's my life. If you could just sense the excitement, like I think it's something that's always been in me. But you hear this saying that's coming around now: remember who you are. Into this world, knowing who we are, but along the way, we kind of forget. And then some
Mhm.
of us are blessed to actually start remembering. And I've been blessed to begin remembering. So
Mhm.
because it's what I am,
Yeah.
yeah.
So beautiful. And you're at this moment in your life now where you've followed a lot of breadcrumbs and a lot of the puzzle pieces have come together. And I'm curious if you could speak to the people who are listening, and maybe even to yourself before all of this, of someone who's like, man, I really like, what is my purpose? I don't know. I don't know what I'm here to do. I feel like there's something more for me, but I don't know what that is and I don't know how to find it. What would you tell that person?
I would say take time to be still, listen to your intuition, and trust the process. Set the intention. If the intention is, I just want to know what my purpose is, Set that intention and then trust the process that it will come to you. It really
Mhm.
is that simple. We don't have to make it harder than that. Now, I
Mhm.
think what happens is we become impatient during the process, right? And
Yeah.
we try to insert what we think it's supposed to be or what it should be, which then takes the process and makes the process a little longer.
Mhm.
If we could just find that time just to be still, be quiet, that be still and know, right?
Mhm.
Be still and know, and then, yeah, trust the process.
Mhm. Yeah.
Trust the
And I feel
process.
like it all comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation of what is your relationship with the unknown? If
Mhm.
someone's relationship with the unknown is this is a problem, this is bad, I should have it figured out by now, I should know exactly how everything in my life is going to play out, versus if you can be in that space of unknown and be curious and be in wonder and be excited and know that it's not like when you discover your purpose, it's check, my life is over. Of like, I figured it out. It's like it continues to evolve as
Exactly.
you go. And you can still feel purposeful in this particular moment and know that will continue to evolve, even if that purpose is my purpose today is joy. My purpose today is love. My purpose today is whatever it is. What do you want to embody? And then continue to invite in breadcrumbs, clarity, the next step to come through. Ask to be led to what's going to serve your highest good instead of feeling like you need to figure it all out and have the destination pinned on the map ahead of time. Can
Good.
you enjoy the journey and be
And
curious
then
about
once you set that intention and things begin to line up, also be mindful of if there are things that are not in alignment, then you don't
Mhm.
entertain them because that kind of like puts the process on pause as well. I mean,
Mhm.
all things work together for our good, right? But sometimes there are things that can stifle us a little bit. And that's one
Mhm.
that I'm even learning now that I'm being mindful. If now that I know and I'm clear on what it is that I want, when things come to me, if they don't align with the intent,
Mhm.
I know that it's not for me. And
Mm.
let it go.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
about recognizing what's a yes and also recognizing what's a no. And
Yes.
being able to have that attunement. And again, maybe you're not crystal clear about everything, but if you're connected to your intuition, if you're connected to your energy, you can sense of like, oh, when something's a yes, it feels spacious in my body. My heart feels open, my chest feels open, versus when something's a no, I feel closed off, I feel tight, I feel constricted, maybe I feel something. So the more in tune you are with your energy, with your body, with your intuition, you'll be able to recognize the differences in what's a yes and what's a no.
Very true. And that's why it's so important to set time aside to just be still. Because in that stillness is when you're getting to know your spirit, you're getting to know how things show up in your body, you're getting to know how what defenses you have. Being
Mhm.
still is such a weapon. It is such a
Mhm.
weapon when you need it. And it is
Mhm.
such it's also it's love when you need it. There's
Mhm.
everything that I think we need energetically can be found in the stillness.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and I would imagine you probably get clients like this. I feel like so many of my female clients struggle to make time for stillness, make time for rest, make time for quote unquote doing nothing. Like, is there anything you'd want to say to people who are like, it's just so hard? If they do sit, they feel like they have to be doing something productive, and just like the nervous system and the programming is just like trying to shut it down versus being able to actually take time for rest. So for someone who struggles with that, what
Yeah.
would you want to tell them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was one of those people, and I'm still somewhat working through that process. But one of the principles in shamanic medicine is do nothing, right? And so, what I would advise is it doesn't have to be 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, not even 15 minutes a day. If you can just sit still for 1 minute every single day, and then Maybe a week later, bump that up to 2 minutes. And then maybe a week later, just start off small. That was something that was given to me in Peru. Is that I was the type of person that's I got to jump in head first and do it all at one time this way. And
Yeah.
Spirit spoke to me and said, no, sometimes this looks like putting your pinky toe in the water and then putting your big toe in the water and then maybe putting your whole foot up to your ankle and then going up like little by little is how you win the race. It doesn't have to be all at once. So just start off slow, do what you can, and then build on what you've done. And congratulate
Mhm.
yourself on the small wins, the small victories.
Mm.
Those small
Mhm.
will become big victories, right?
Yeah.
Always congratulate yourself, extend yourself peace, and extend yourself grace.
Amazing. So start small, even if it's just 1 minute at a time. Can you stare out a window? Can you
Yeah,
stare at the wall? Can you do anything that's just be present when you're drinking your tea, whatever it is,
yeah.
practicing that stillness. I feel called to share this. I have some artwork hanging on my wall right now that my grandmother, who has passed, has made. And in a journey that I was in Peru, she came to me in a moment and her question, I was like sitting in her kitchen and she was like, "Where are you so in a rush to? Sit down, have a cookie, have a glass of wine. Where are you trying to get to?" And I was just like, "Oh yeah." Where am I trying to get to? And it was just that invitation of, can I just be present now and
Yeah.
enjoy what's in front of me? So I
Right,
love.
be present. That is so important. I have to remind myself, and then so I'm on automatic now that when I'm finding that I'm either going into the past too far, into the future too far, I hear this voice that sounds like my voice that says, "Stay present, Kimberly, stay present." And then I come back, focus on my
Mm,
breath. And when I'm focusing on my breath is now how I know I'm in the present. Yeah.
mhm.
So in that 1
Beautiful.
minute a day that you're giving yourself to be present, focus on your breath. And in that stillness, you know that you're in the present moment. Because
Mm,
a lot with the anxiety and certain things that we feel, it comes up because we're either in the past or we're in the future. But every single thing that we need is in the present moment as each present moment presents itself. Right?
mhm,
We have
mhm.
everything that we need in every present moment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful reminder. I love it. So, as we're nearing the end of this conversation today, if there was one thing that people could take away or one thing that you want them to remember, what would that message be?
Wow. I felt like I wanted to be prepared if that type of question came up, but the one thing I think I've said it already is be kind to yourself and the same grace that you would extend to someone else, extend to yourself. Yeah.
Beautiful reminder and something that I know so many people struggle with. And when you really think about that, you're like, wait, would I talk to other people how I'm talking to myself right now? If not,
Yeah.
maybe rethink what you're telling yourself in this moment.
Exactly. Exactly.
So beautiful. And if people want to work with you, want to learn more about your work, where can they find you?
So my website is www.inner-ki.com. So that's innerkey.com. And my email address is Kimberly, Kimberly, at innerkey.com, ENER-KI.com.
Beautiful. Do you do only in-person sessions? Could people find you virtually or
In person and virtually. Yes, absolutely. Energy has no boundaries, right? So we
amazing?
definitely do remote sessions.
Love it.
Thank
So definitely check her out. Oh my gosh, the light activation, I can still feel that in my body. So powerful.
you.
And one of the last questions I love to ask people, because for me, so much of following your spark, and we talked about this, is following just what you're curious about, what's sparking your inspiration. It may make no sense, it may just be bringing you joy. Is there anything in the moment that you've been giving yourself time and space and permission to follow lately, like big or small? It could be absolutely anything. What comes to your mind?
That I have been giving myself permission to follow this work. This
Mm,
work.
mhm.
And just I touched on it a little bit and just to say there was a time where because of different thought processes that I had, this work was something that I used to be afraid of. It didn't align with how I was being taught at one time. And as I've gone and I've grown in this work and I see the good that it's doing, I'm becoming less and less afraid, or I should say, I've
Mm,
become less and less afraid of it. And I'm open to embrace it more. And the
mm,
more I'm open to embrace it, the stronger it's become in my life, the more prevalent it's become, the more joy it's bringing me.
mm,
So I'm giving myself permission to now with this, I no longer have to do a pinky toe, a big toe.
mm.
Now I'm like, I'm all in. I'm all in. So yeah, it would be good to know.
So beautiful. And so beautiful to also witness the process. And for people too listening to this, like you might not be all in at the beginning, and that's okay too, to be able to find your way with it and allow the path to unfold. And now you've come to this beautiful place where it is embodied and aligned, and you're like jumping in the deep end and it's all good. And it's a journey. So to be able to be with that too. But how beautiful. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Same here. I am so glad to be here. This makes me happy. Your energy is beautiful, and thank you
Mm,
so much for allowing me to share with you and with
thank
your
you.
audience. I appreciate you.